Hello, my name is Mikhail Chery, and I'm in 10th grade as of right now, and I'm also submitting this under the video production category for this competition. Since my video is 2 minutes, but since it takes so long to explain it, I'm just gonna go over four highlights I think I should shed some light on for the midst of this 15 to 10 minute interview. Starting off with the first shot or the first scene, I wanted to have Konek. I wanted to have Konek being almost the focal point of the video. So for this shot, okay. So for this shot, with the animations, with the drawings of him being birthed into life, I did a drawing on After Effects and exported it as a PNG file. What I should have done though, as an improvement, would have been to just use dynamic link and just go back and forth with that instead of me going to After Effects, exporting it, and then going back to Premiere. And it would have saved me a lot more time. Another thing about this scene is I also use stock footage for the the background, the little flashing you see. That it came from stock footage, and I have it cited in the documents page that's attached to this submission. I color graded this video from this shot that I took on someone else's camera, on my brother's camera. So I guess I was somewhat involved with him. I was in. It wasn't in completely by myself, if that makes sense. I was using his camera as another way to get shots for this video. So I basically color graded it and toned down the exposure so you wouldn't really be able to see. It would be more of an outline of the neighborhood, and you'll focus more on Konek himself. This transition, I at first I didn't envision the to use stock footage. So before it would have just been the video just shifting upwards as leading into the next shot, which I thought that was pretty cool that I was making it. So I just left it there after my first draft, I think. But I didn't want to have the actual stock footage go up along with the video because I thought it would just be a lot more darker without it. So I just left it there. I had to check something. Okay, but basic another thing about this. Okay. In this scene, I took one video and copied it 2 times, as you can see here, and spat and dragged it out longer, so it'll be more dramatic along with this ambient soundtrack, which is also stock footage. As I change and make it more drastic. You'll be able to take more time to experience the title. Otherwise, it would have just been a lot shorter and more rushed. Even though this entire thing is rushed, which I would improve on that. If I were to do it again, make it a little bit more longer, probably 3 minutes. Just to give a little bit more scenes, more feeling to them, more gravity. Even though it's a short story, which is the basically the intention of this project is a short story about Konek and his what he would be dreaming about. I'm kind of all over the place. But it's whatever. But basically, in this scene, I took the stock. No, stock footage. Okay, no, I drew this. I drew these images in After Effects and exported them using a PNG sequence, so I'll be able to measure the duration in Premiere, which I could also do that with using dynamic link, but that's something I would have changed. But going back to what I was saying, I copied to the same video and spread it out twice, so it ended up as a third of the same video, and added channel blur to one of them, and gloss to the top two, so it'll give it a more digital effect. Moving on to this shot, I use stock footage for as the background, where like there's
Let's go.
a lot of shining lights. Since in the actual footage it's so shining light and stuff like that, shining very bright lights. I thought I could use that in some shape or form, so I ended up using this as a transition, not transition, but more of a gateway to the next characters while I'm scrubbing through this.
Let's go back again.
Like as soon as there's like a bright shining light, the arrows would change to another character, which I also drew in After Effects. I drew characters, exported them as a PNG sequence. That's getting repetitive, but that's how it is. And just and along with the arrows, I took the same stock footage and masked out some areas of it, and I added a blend mode called divide, which I wasn't expecting to use myself, but while I was experimenting, I just ended up finding that I liked the way the cursor looked after that, almost like a beam, an energy beam with like energy inside of like plasma. That was kind of cool. So I ended up leaving it there. Yeah, but on that note, no, never mind. We'll get to it later. But for this shot, took drew it in After Effects, exported it as a PNG, and then I changed the duration of each clip, each of them getting subsequently like shorter, and then there would be more shorter, if that makes sense. Like the scale of the actual TV will get shorter, which is what this is. It, if it didn't look like it before by my terrible drawing, but it'll be like you're looking into a TV that's looking into a TV that's also looking into another TV, and we have that keep going for this little comedic, this comedy scene I was trying to go for, and I took the stock footage, color graded it, so since I'm using the same stock footage. I didn't want you to notice that I was using the same stock footage because it would be hard to tell anyway because of the way it is in general. But I didn't want to give that stale feeling to my project, so I ended up changing it into a brighter color, more tar and more rust. And I ended up using the blend mode divine on this one to make the TVs more brighter, which ended up pretty good. I like the way that I envisioned it. But the creative aspects I took into making this entire thing was to give it time to sink in. What I mean by that is I didn't make all of this in like a week or something, or a week or so. It was over a 2 month process of me just going in. I made the first draft in probably like January. Then I just stopped. I just let the ideas flow to me. And I felt like when like the deadline was getting close, I was like, okay, let me start working on this a little bit more. And then and then the ideas just came to me. Yeah, I guess that's a, a weird thing about being creative, but the thoughts just came to me. And the unique aspects I felt like my project had was like an ambient feel, which sort of means like calming, calming feel with the music. The music selection I chose was sort of a calming. It's not too serious, not like a climax or any exposition. Not exposition, but like okay, back to the climax. It's not like a big climax or something like that. It's sort of mellow in the way that the story is, which is what I envisioned it to be. So I wouldn't have to do anything drastic, like add like a explosion for no reason. I have it be like a James Bond movie, something like that. I didn't want to do that, so I just went for this idea, and it ended up turning out pretty good. Did I work on this project alone? Yes. Besides like the stock footage and the audio, I did this mainly by myself. The most challenging parts had to have been figuring out whether what Konek will look like to begin with. And what I mean, making his actual character wasn't that bad. Like I somewhat drew sketches of it, but making him pop out, such a small character pop out in like real life scenes like this, was kind of difficult for me to envision. Oh, on that note, it just came to me again as I was making this part wasn't supposed to end. Like, Konek was supposed to stay on this entire scene before like until like the next scene, but I forgot as I was making as I was transferring like effects from my PC to my laptop when I was experimenting. So that's a change I would also make to my project. But on that note, okay. Not on that note, but going back to the questions, that was probably have been the hardest part because having because I was gonna be color grading the backgrounds a lot, so I would it was to shift sort of the mentality of them, not the mentality, but the way Konek was kind of weird, and at first for me, the easiest part and the funnest part I would want to add was the voice lines that I voice voiceover recorded with this in Premiere. That was probably the funnest I had in this project. Besides from like just putting my ideas to work, just acting out the characters, giving life into them was really fun. I What did I learn during this project? It had to have been captions, as using the essential soundboard, like as in learning and implementing them had to have been captions and using the essential sound panel and using stock footage because I never used stock footage besides like lighting effects, and it was only like one time. But I use like more than one type of stock footage in audio, and I think someone learned from you from doing that because I try to avoid them as much as possible, but I think I should embrace it now after completing this project. As I said before, I use stock footage and stock audio. So attached to the submission, there should be a document page along with the title of the work I use, along with the author, the actual creator, and the link to where I got it from. But since I was like going through the improvements, this bit by bit, when it was necessary, I would also wanted to have changed this scene. I wanted to change this scene a little bit because I felt it was like, along with the story, it felt it didn't sit well with my mouth when I watched over it after I exported the video. It didn't sit well in my mouth. This and some of the voice lines, I think I should have redone it before I submitted it. So if I were to go back in total, I would have used dynamic link more, changed the timing on that Konek PNG, and changed up the voice lines in this scene in general. But now that I think this is all. Well, thank you for looking at my video. Hold up. Thank you for looking at my video. I appreciate it and have a good one.